Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at NECA's new Predator 2 Ultimate Scout Predator, which is another Predator from NECA. It's almost pointless to review these, and I know that it's not because they're all still unique, but if you collect these things, you pretty much know what you're going to be getting. Now, if you don't collect these things, that's probably who's going to benefit most from my reviews, but even if you do collect them, this way you have an idea of what you're going to be getting, because they are all unique in at least a few ways. This one, even though it uses a lot of older parts, it is still a fairly unique release, so we're going to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 8¼ inches. That's going to make him pretty close to 21 centimeters. And it does look like your standard NECA Predator. Lots of clean paintwork all over the place, lots of sculpt work all over the place. Looks really, really good overall. There's a couple things that I do want to point out though that kind of bugged me a little bit. This guy's skin tone, he's a much more like fleshy, human fleshy color, like you can see under his helmet. And then there's this yellowish paint on top. You can see it on his thighs, on his fingers, it's fairly obvious. You get that yellowish paint on top, and like I said, it's fleshy here, no yellow on the underside of the mask. Now that's hard to notice for sure, but everywhere it's kind of obvious how the plastic is that fleshy color and then the yellow paint is not feathered on nicely. Like back here it looks pretty okay, but then like on the butt cheek over here, it's not quite as clean a paint job as we've seen in the past from NECA, so I'm not sure if they're going for a new stylized look for this guy or what. It's just a little bit unique. You're not going to notice it unless you get close and look at it in a review. Like at that distance it's going to look fine, so if it's on a shelf it's no issue, but it does stand out as being that way a little bit more than I would like, unless it's intentional. It's hard to say. We'll get to this in a minute, but that does stand out to me. But we do have all of the dry brushing and washing and things going on everywhere. The fishnet is still really, really well painted. All of it is sculpted. We have some blood on the claws over here this time. That's cool. Very, very nice paint job throughout, other than that one issue with the yellow on top of the flesh. I'm not sure what happened there, but otherwise it looks really good. I will point out also, these 3 dots up here should be red, at least according to this and according to everything I know about Predators. And the red dots look awesome, and they're not on here, and they would really set the figure off. It's a very tiny thing, I know, but that's okay. We also have the logos or symbols in his wrist thing this time, which we don't always get. I think maybe on all the Ultimates we do, but either way that looks pretty good. And before we go any farther, it's time for the question of the day. Which Predator of all the different Predators, not the movies, the actual Predators themselves, is your favorite, including AVP ones, because that has given us the most variety? Mine is definitely Scar Predator, and as far as NECA's releases go, Unmasked Scar Predator is my favorite. But you guys can let me know how you guys feel about the rest of them in the comment section below. That's our question of the day. Don't forget to answer the question of the day. Okay, back to the aesthetic. Very good. Other than that one issue, it's as good as any other NECA Predator, so that's fine. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It could have been a 9, but that weird yellowish paint on there is just kind of weird. Okay, on to the accessories. We do have the masked or helmeted head, which you already saw, and I did show you the unmasked head. This is a fairly unique sculpt. I don't think we've ever had another one with the mouth that looks quite like this and the eyes that aren't mostly black, and I really, really like it. It's just weird that the paint doesn't have any real shading to it. It's just more like color blocks, which is very strange. The whole top of the head is like that, even the dark colors. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if NECA, if that's intentional or if it's a factory issue or what, but I'm very curious about that. As for hands, we have the 2 open hands that come on them in the package. We have a couple different gripping hands and then one for throwing the thingy majigger, so that's okay. We do also have the alternate forearm piece, which is just a little tiny piece, don't lose that. And then we get the extended staff or pokey thing. We get the collapsed one. We get 2 different throwing discs, one that's open, one that's closed. We get a blast effect for his shoulder cannon, and then we get the collapsed and extended version of his main rifle gun thingy, and the big one actually extends at the front and has a few moving parts on it, so that's pretty cool. And then last but not least, on his back we have a little thingy, a nubbin cover that can be removed, and you can stick the gun on his back. I believe that's what you're supposed to do with it, and that's how it works, so that is cool. So good run of accessories. I can't think of anything else you would need for this guy, so 10 out of 10 for accessories. That is fine. I will note though, mine has a little hole missing in his back, which is normally where there's a peg for holding his spear. or a clip. I don't know if this guy's supposed to have it or not. Mine doesn't. I have had a few older ones that are supposed to have that and they didn't. I don't know if they just fall out in production or what, but mine doesn't have it. I'll also note that down here where the net launcher thingy normally goes is just a hole. I don't think it's supposed to be there this time, and it's just a reused old part, but putting it out there, mine doesn't have it, and there is a hole in the leg where it could have gone. Again, I think that's intentional, but there you have it. Okay, as for articulation, it's not one of the most articulated ones we've ever seen as far as range goes, but you can look up pretty well. Looking down works pretty well. Rotating side to side isn't really an issue. Be careful with this guy though. It does move. It does move on this rail, so that's good. And it's mostly hard plastic. Maybe it's all the way hard plastic, but still, you want to be careful of those fragile bits. But the head moves pretty well. It leans nicely. It's not the best we've ever seen, but it's a pretty good one. No real issues there. For the shoulder, this is connected at the forearm, so it's going to get in the way when you try to raise the arm up, unless you can tuck it under, which I've done, and you get the arm up pretty horizontal, so that's fine. Full rotation there. Bicep swivel is fine, except this is going to bounce again into other things, so be aware of that. For the elbow, full range, no issues, that's all good. That's that nubbin, I told it nubbin cover. Again, we already have this piece, I've talked about that. We have our wrist swivel in the forearm and in the wrists, where of course they peg in, and you have your hinge, so no problems there. Diaphragm joint on this guy, this is where he's less articulated or less rangy than some of the other ones. It's not bad by any means, he still leans forward and back, and maybe you could squeak a little bit more out of him after heating, but he's not stuck at all, so I think he's just fairly slender and doesn't have too many gaps, so he's a little bit more limited there, but it's not an issue. It all works. Down here, it's mostly not gonna, it's floppy. It has some range, but you're not gonna be able to really do anything because it's floppy side to side. It doesn't really do much front and back, so that's still not great. Let's put that down so I don't break it. Be careful with these guys. They've gotten a lot better at this, but it's still very, very tiny, and you don't want to bust that. For the hips, it's still the old style hips, so you get good range. You could probably even force it more than that, but really good range, but they're not tight. There's definitely loose spots on the hips. They're not loose overall, but there are loose notches. And then the legs are still connected like this, which just needs to go, NECA. Please, please, please stop doing that. They're not loose, but again, there are loose spots and they are connected to each other. Now, they don't do that once you move them, of course, because they can't, but it is still the issue that you have grown to know and love or hate. So be aware. Thigh swivels work just fine. Double jointed knee is the traditional knee. There's no swivel built into this one, which I prefer it this way, honestly. So that's perfectly good range, no problem there. And then the ankles have ball pegs. This is one of the better examples of how you can do a ball peg ankle pretty well. No problems there. So definitely not the best we've seen from them, but it's certainly not the worst, and it's mostly pretty darn good. So I'll give this guy a 7 out of 10 for the articulation. We still have that issue with the hips. A little bit more limited in the torso, but not too bad. And yeah, it's not too bad at all for articulation. So final verdict on this guy. It's probably not the most impressive Ultimate release that they've done. They've definitely had some that really stand out head and shoulder above the others. This one's perfectly solid though. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for the final verdict. There's nothing wrong with this release in a serious way. It's just probably not as good as some of the other ones, which happen to be really good. And there's so many that are so similar. I mean, Predators are Predators. So we're talking about little minor things that are separating them from each other. So I would say definitely a fine release, but it's probably not the most exciting Ultimate that they've ever done. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. How about some Ultimate AVP Predators? That would be fun, right? I love the AVP designs. I know a lot of you don't. I don't care. I like it. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up anyway. It's free. It doesn't hurt you, and it makes me feel good. So do it, please, and thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day. I've reviewed just about every single Predator ever, starting with the AVP ones. I think I might have missed a couple exclusives, but just about all of them. So check out all of those. Lots of stuff. So come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.